Debbie is a high-flying British Nigerian. She had never been one to lose control and poise. She thrived in the world of finance, where precision and logic ruled. But the moment she met Blessing and Femi in Lagos, her carefully constructed world began to unravel. What started as admiration turned into an obsession, a dangerous, all-consuming need to possess him. Debbie arrived in Lagos with a clear plan: celebrate her grandmother's 70th birthday, spend a few days soaking up the warmth of family, and return to her structured life in London. But everything changed when she met Blessing. Blessing's unease grows as Debbie becomes increasingly involved in Femi's business. Femi brushes off her concerns, claiming that Debbie is merely a means to an end. To convince Blessing, he outlines his plan to cut Debbie off once the business is successful. However, Blessing's instincts tell her otherwise. Meanwhile, Debbie's interactions with the family, particularly the children, begin to blur professional boundaries. At a family gathering, Debbie's charm wins over Femi's parents, adding another layer of tension. Debbie introduces Femi to a venture capitalist firm she claims has unlimited potential for his business idea. Unbeknownst to him, she's a silent partner. During the meeting, the VC executives praise Debbie for her eye for talent, but Femi assumes they're simply acknowledging her role as a consultant. The investment offer is tempting, but requires Femi to resign from his stable job. Debbie subtly manipulates him into believing this is the only way to scale his business. At a dinner hosted by the venture capitalist firm, Femi reconnects with their legal advisor, his old secondary schoolmate, Michael. Over drinks, Michael mentions Debbie's significant stake in the firm. Though said in passing, the revelation plants a seed of doubt in Femi's mind. Simultaneously, Michael senses that Femi might be unaware of Debbie's true involvement. Their conversation is interrupted by Debbie's arrival, her presence as magnetic as ever, and Femi shelves his suspicions for the moment. The investment deal closes. Femi was openly excited and hugged Debbie to say thank you. Debbie felt peaceful and reassured by the hugged. With Debbie's encouragement, he quits his job to focus entirely on his venture as business begins to thrive. But Blessing becomes increasingly anxious, sensing that Femi's reliance on Debbie has deepened. Meanwhile, Debbie offers to help Blessing with the organization of Children's Harvest in her church, further embedding herself in their personal lives. Blessing is torn between gratitude and suspicion. Meanwhile, a subplot emerges as Michael starts covertly investigating Debbie's motivations, spurred by his own ethical concerns. As Femi digs deeper into Debbie's involvement with the venture capitalist firm, he uncovers inconsistencies in her explanations. Confronted with documents showing her stake in the company, Debbie admits the truth but frames it as an act of support for Femi's vision. The argument escalates as Debbie shifts from defensive to emotional, accusing Femi of underestimating her feelings for him. Her vulnerability seems genuine, leaving Femi conflicted. The tension in the room was palpable as Femi stood frozen, his mind reeling from Debbie's explosive confession. Debbie, now trembling slightly, saw an opportunity to stake her claim, to pour out the feelings she had suppressed for so long. She took a deep breath, leaned forward, and locked eyes with Femi. "Listen to me, Femi," her voice thick with emotion. "I've helped you build this business from the ground up. I believed in you when no one else did. I got you an investor and offering you immeasurable supports your wife could ever do. And what do I get in return? Distance, avoidance, and rejection." She paused, letting her words sink in. Femi remained silent, his jaw clenched tightly, but Debbie continued. "It's time for you to make a decision. I have a proposal, several options in fact." She listed them methodically, her voice steady, but her eyes betraying a storm of emotions. 1. Keep the status quo. Femi could continue to run the business as it was, with her backing and support, but in return, he had to engage in a romantic relationship with her. "And Femi," she added, "I don't mind being your second wife. Blessing and the kids don't have to know." 2. Marry me as your second wife. If Femi openly told Blessing and his family that he was taking Debbie as a second wife, she would hand over 100% ownership of the business to him. 3. Walk away from the business. Debbie revealed that the venture capitalist company she worked with would withdraw their investment entirely. Femi would be back to ground zero, and she would return to London, cutting all ties with him. 4. Sell the business. Debbie explained that the company would devalue the business and sell it to one of their parent companies. Femi would receive only 5% of the sale proceeds, and she would disappear from his life forever. Femi's face darkened as Debbie laid out her terms. "You're leaving me no choice," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. Debbie reached out to touch his hand, but he recoiled, glaring at her with an intensity that made her flinch. "Think about it, Femi," Debbie said, her voice softening as she blinked away tears. "We could have something extraordinary. I'm willing to sacrifice everything for you." As her phone started ringing with her grandmother's name flashing on the screen, Debbie ignored it, her focus entirely on Femi. His phone buzzed too, Blessing's name lighting up his screen, but neither of them answered. Femi stood abruptly, his chair screeching against the tiled floor. "I'll give you my answer soon," he said, his tone cold and final. Without another word, he left the office, leaving Debbie alone with the weight of her proposal hanging in the air. Femi, desperate for a solution, left the building to contact Michael, who listens in on Debbie's ultimatum. Michael reassures Femi, hinting at a potential legal loophole in the venture capitalist agreement. Blessing arrives at the office with Femi's lunch and overhears the entire conversation from the hallway, sticking her ear to door. Shaken and hyperventilating, she rushed out of the building to call Debbie's grandmother, sobbing and pleading for her intervention. "Mama, Debbie wants to snatch my husband from me and ruin our family." The grandmother, a traditional matriarch with a sharp tongue, is stunned by Blessing's account and promises to intervene. Blessing decides to confront Debbie directly in the office, but stops short after seeing Debbie's grandmother arrive unannounced. The confrontation between the two women is explosive, with the grandmother chastising Debbie for her actions. Debbie is visibly shaken and crying by her grandmother's intervention, but refuses to back down. She accuses her grandmother of not understanding how she feels or the sacrifices she's made. Michael uncovers a clause in the contract that could potentially nullify the VC's control over Femi's business. However, it would require Femi to make significant personal sacrifices. Michael also reveals that Debbie has been leveraging her connections to influence Femi's suppliers and clients, effectively boxing him into a corner. Femi begins to see the full extent of Debbie's plan. Debbie, in her natural stride and confidence, doubled down, visiting Femi's home uninvited and attempting to win over his children with expensive gifts. Blessing, furious, confronts Debbie in front of the children, creating a chaotic scene. Femi returns home to find his wife in tears and his children confused. Debbie's actions begin to alienate even her closest allies, including her grandmother. Femi and Michael devise a plan to outsmart Debbie legally and professionally. Meanwhile, Debbie begins to show cracks in her confident exterior, revealing moments of loneliness and regret. She confides in a close friend who warns her that she's playing a dangerous game. Debbie's internal conflict deepens as she grapples with her obsession with Femi. Blessing, determined to save her family, takes matters into her own hands. She reaches out to Femi's parents for support, enlisting them to confront Debbie's manipulations. The family meeting becomes a turning point as Femi's parents publicly denounce Debbie's actions, shaming her in a way that even she can't ignore, but showed concern about his losing the business, and he has resigned from his job. Debbie makes one final attempt to sway Femi, showing up at his office with a detailed plan for their future together. Femi listens in silence, his expression unreadable. As she finishes, Debbie's phone rings. It's her grandmother. Femi's phone also rings. It's Blessing, then Michael. The simultaneous calls create a moment of unbearable tension. Femi picks up his phone, ignoring Debbie's pleas. Speaking to Michael, he says, "Michael, let's take the fight to Debbie's doorstep once and for all," as Femi and Michael are piecing together a legal counterstrike to undo Debbie's hold on the business. Would their plan work, or is Debbie always one step ahead? As she feels the walls closing in, her obsession darkened, her desperation sharpening like a knife. The game isn't over yet. In Lagos, a cornered player is often the most dangerous, with one more card to play. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Stay tuned for more twists and drama.